Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. I'm joined by Steph Liberatore. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I'm the unofficial mayor of Mason. I'm the most random person you'll meet, and that's how I met Stephanie. I'm an alum of George Mason, and as an alum, we have homecoming. And one of my favorite traditions that we've started, one of my favorite traditions during homecoming week is an opportunity for the community to practice nonfiction writing. And that is how I got connected with Stephanie, because I've been doing it, I think, 4 years straight. Started in COVID, and this is one of my favorite activities. I make sure I always sign it up. I'm also going to share a funny story about that later while she's sharing. But she's a instructor in the creative writing department here at George Mason. I think that is a great way to enhance your skills. And I want to learn a little bit about her journey with creative writing and the skills that everyday people like me, the random Philip Wilkersons, can get out of expressing themselves creatively. So, Stephanie, give a little bit of background on who you are.
Yeah, well, first, thanks so much for having me, Philip. We've been trying to make this happen for a little while. I'm so happy to be here today. And I'm always happy to see Philip at the memoir events. I did not realize also that they were the third most attended event after the basketball game and the watch party, which I was like, what? I'm sitting in my little home office talking to these folks. I don't think of it as such a big thing. But anyway, always happy to see Philip in the audience. So I'm Steph Liberatore. I teach in the English department. I teach advanced composition, but my real passion is creative nonfiction writing. And it is always so cool to me to teach creative nonfiction, because I think students and a lot of people, I feel like we have a bad rap in creative nonfiction. People think it's boring, dull.
Writing,
the academic,
English writing is boring. Or?
No, nonfiction. People hear the word nonfiction and they think dull, and so I love introducing people to no, actually, there's a creative before the nonfiction,
Okay.
and it's fun, it's joyful, it's like humanity. So, and I also, as Philip mentioned, I run a creative nonfiction flash journal called, in short, a Journal of Flash Nonfiction.
Well, there's one, and then I think about it. I'm a history major undergrad, and my first inkling when you say nonfiction means it had to be real.
Yes.
And so that's where people probably think of this, if it's nonfiction, it doesn't have dragons, and it don't have, it's not fantasy, it's not sci-fi, it's real, nonfiction, and then it gets there. But talk a little bit about that misnomer, because now I've learned that it could be creative, it could be real events, but with a different lens.
Yeah. I think you're not alone in that, Philip. I think that's how a lot of people think about it. And I for all the years I've been teaching creative nonfiction, I feel like I've tried to come up with a concise description, and I sort of hate this one because it stands on the back of fiction. But I think the best explanation is that it is nonfiction written using the tools of fiction. So it is true stories, well told. There are scenes, there are characters. You're basically making life into art and literature.
I like that.
Yeah.
Life into art. I think that might be the title.
Oh, I love it.
That might be the title.
I love it.
So tell me a little bit about your background in writing for yourself, before you took this academic route.
Sure. Well, so I probably, like a lot of people who study English, I was an avid reader. I started having growing pains when I was 8, and so I would spend a lot of time in the bathtub in hot water reading books. And so I started reading a book a day to get rid of these growing pains. And when I always knew I wanted to study English, but when I got to college, my parents were very practical people. My dad was in finance, and they were like, what the heck are you going to do with an English degree?
Yep.
So I started as an English major. I kind of moved around a bit. I studied film. That was more practical than English. I don't know what I was thinking.
Writing screenplays or something.
Right.
Money talks.
And eventually I landed on double majoring in English and journalism.
Real events. You write about real events.
Right. And, the way I actually discovered creative nonfiction, I was just writing about this in a teaching statement the other day. I took a class called Intro to Creative Nonfiction my last semester, my senior year. And I was a poet at that point. I thought I was going to write poetry. I had no idea what creative nonfiction was. I wasn't that, like a lot of my students, I wasn't that excited to take it. And then I got in that class, and one, like the professor was like young and cool and funny and accessible.
That's what it takes,
And
right?
two, we read things like Steve Almond's Candy Freak, which is like a research about like candy manufacturing, and he is so funny, Steve Almond. Um, and we read stuff that felt really relevant and real to me, and I just like fell in love with it. And I knew that I wanted to do an MFA program, which is like for us as creative writers, that's like our terminal degree. There are now PhDs in creative writing, but they aren't
Got
as
it.
they weren't as right. So like the MFA is considered a terminal degree. And I knew I wanted to do that, but it's like a terrible investment. It doesn't it doesn't pay itself back.
Well, and shout out to my man. Now I understand that background. We didn't really get into it, but you know, my good friend Michael Don.
Yeah,
He has the MFA.
Yeah,
We talked
yep.
about his journey with writing.
Yes,
And
love
you know,
Michael.
he loves writing about sports, and then I think I'm seeing his connection that like that journalism could be a good gateway to
Totally,
creative
yeah,
writing.
it could.
Let me see. That journalism could be a good gateway to creative nonfiction writing because then, like, you know, you're talking about events, but let me add, you know, add a little flavor to the events and not be so
Absolutely.
stoic as a Washington Post
Yes,
article. You can add a
yes.
little bit more flavor to it.
Yeah, and I think too, like we can have that sort of reputation as being like a more practical creative writing choice, if you will. But you know, all my teachers told me like, don't go into the MFA right away. Make sure it's what you really want to do. So I worked for 5 years. I worked in publishing as an editor for a science magazine. I was the managing editor of the Science Teacher Journal.
So that's technical writing right there.
Yeah. And then I went back to school after I'd been out of undergrad for 5 years. And I think that was really important for me and as a writer because one, I like appreciate, probably like you in your PhD program, I appreciated what it meant to be in school full time. I actually had things to write about because, you know, I wasn't like 21 anymore.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I knew when I was in the MFA that, you know, we have a teaching assistantship program. I got to teach undergrads and I loved it. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. So when I graduated, I was like, hi, could you guys, are you hiring? Can I stay? And eventually.
So it was here.
It was here at Mason.
Got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So maybe that's a good tailway then because as you were exploring your program as someone that worked out in the world, where was that click that you're like, you know what? Because it kind of happened to me, right? I got my master's here in George Mason, and I was like, I had to do my internship at Career Services.
Oh,
This is back in 2012, and I was like, wow, I really like staying here. I like this part. You know, I didn't automatically get a job, but I knew that was that exposed me to working in higher ed.
Yeah.
What about you? Was that same experience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly when I was like, I want to be a professor one day. I think I always wanted to do creative writing, and I learned kind of the hard way that like actually nobody does that for a job. Unless you're like someone very very famous who sells a lot of books that you kind of have to do something else to pay the
Side
bills.
hustle, right?
Side
Exactly.
hustle, right. Even though it's my full hustle, my teaching.
The teaching is
is
a full
the full
hustle, and then
my
you can
writing is
it's
like
the
my side hustle, unfortunately. But you know,
that's what you see in the world.
that's what you that's what you see in the
get
world.
That. I get that.
And I think that honestly that professor I had really changed my life. And so I think once I got into those graduate assistantships where I was teaching freshman college, I was like, I love this. I also love the schedule. Like I knew I wanted to have a family, and I was like, it's a lot of work. But like the schedule is somewhat flexible enough that you can kind of balance. So it just appealed to me for a lot of reasons, and it just felt like also an opportunity to like learn for the rest of my life, which is you know, kind of a dream come true.
So you know, one just quick question that came to my mind. The professor that you had in undergrad that was really doing it, was that his full-time thing and writing was his side hustle, or?
So it was a she. Yes. I mean, most of the writers that I know now, yes, she was a full-time professor. Like me, she had done her MFA in poetry at Penn State, which is where I went to school.
You learn from people,
Yeah, and she ended up being hired on full-time afterwards. And then, you know, was writing and publishing, but her full-time gig was teaching.
So you can see that, like, that see it and achieve it.
Yeah.
And then my other thing I was thinking about, like, you know, when you think about terminal degrees, this is your equivalent to MFA.
Yeah.
Is there an expectation if you're a professor in creative writing that you still have to produce research and stuff like that? You know, like publish or perish kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
For the creative writing world.
Totally. That was the thing I didn't realize about the MFA. Like a lot of people were like, oh, with an MFA you can teach. And I was like, great. But if you really actually want to be like tenure track faculty, research faculty in a creative writing program, you need to have an MFA and have also published a book.
A
So that's
book, okay.
partly why I'm a term non-tenure track professor. I'm teaching 4 classes a semester.
Yeah.
I'm writing on the side. I don't have a research expectation because I'm teaching faculty instead of research faculty. But if you work in creative nonfiction as research faculty, yes, you have to keep publishing. You have to have published a book to even get the job usually.
What kind of book do you have to publish? Like a creative writing book or a
Yeah.
research book?
Creative writing book. If you
Like
want to be
some
MFA,
like you analyze some in kind of like a research book on creative writing aspects.
I guess you could.
Or could you do like a creative writing book,
Yeah.
like you wrote a whole nonfiction book?
Exactly. Like, so typically in an MFA program, like your fiction faculty will have published novels or short story collections. Your poetry faculty will have published poetry, collections. Your nonfiction faculty will have published memoirs or essay collections.
At a publishing company
Yeah.
that they can sell.
Yes. And I mean, the publishing landscape has really changed for us.
Yeah.
There's there's the big, I think now we're the big 4. But in order to sell a book to one of the big houses, you have to have an agent.
Yep.
And so that's a whole thing. Like you have to first get the agent, and then the agent has to sell it to a house. So actually, a lot of creative. You nod your head like you know what I'm talking about. Are you
Well,
dealing with this too?
I'm not in my head
Okay.
because just for just because I'm the most random person in the world, I just wanted to see what it was like to publish a book. So last year I did the little like self-published through Amazon
Oh yeah.
to learn like what is like the bootleg
Yeah.
mixtape out of your car way
Oh,
of doing it.
That is such a good analogy.
But
Philip. I love it.
but doing that, it gave me a broader world about like
Yeah.
how to get a real agent, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Because I just did it like I paid like $500,
Right.
and I just did a Google Doc, and I figured, and I
Love
did it, and then I had this person saying you got to get it registered, you got to get ISBN number, all this stuff,
Yeah.
and I was learning that on the fly.
Yeah.
But now I understand like the big time publishing
right.
that was like, okay, you got to do all those things you're saying, and so from my mind, it was almost like exposure, like an independent artist, rap artist,
Yes,
independent rap artist
definitely.
that sells those stuff out their trunk. But if they want to
Yes.
make it to the next level, they got to do the formalized way that
Right.
you're talking about
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
agent and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
but there is also a middle ground too that a lot of creative writing faculty will do is there are university presses and small independent presses.
Yeah.
And they are often willing to take risks that the big houses are not. So if you are like a slightly more experimental writer, or you're more worried about the craft as opposed to the saleability, then those are options for you too.
And then you have to like get them in the big bookstores, Amazon. But like, so does
Yeah.
George Mason have one of their own versions?
We do. We have a press called Stillhouse Press, and students here in the undergrad, MFA, graduate programs work and basically like help run this press. Professor Scott Berg, I'm pretty sure, is the one who's in charge of it. And yeah, we do. We have a university press. We publish books.
I'm
It's pretty
assuming. I thought my friend Rachel Lindsay's working on it. Is there like a publishing concentration to learn the business like
Yes.
this?
So there's a new, and it's so smart. I'm like so proud of us
Because
for having this.
they could do with this
They
thing.
can do yeah. So it's called dynamic publishing, and it's a new minor in the English program. I think it's also potentially like a certificate in graduate school. But yeah, it's super cool because we also have, in addition to Stillhouse Press, I see Philip's notes here. I love it.
Well, because you learn the business, you learn the ins and outs.
We also run a magazine called Poetry Daily here, which is it's an online poetry magazine. They publish a poem a day, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Students can work on that. They can work on Stillhouse. I have taught a class too where students work on In Short. And I take interns on most semesters through English 459 internship.
Excellent.
So there's so many, and like we live in a very vibrant literary community in DC. So there's lots of opportunities for students to get that experience.
Well, technically, you jump right into it because I think a lot of times we see, students say, how do I get in, or what kind of experiences can I get as a student?
Yeah.
I say, yo, write something and throw it in volition. You know what I'm saying? Don't wait to create, get your portfolio up.
Absolutely.
But now you got you got a publishing company through George Mason. You got this.
Yeah.
So obviously getting exposure, but there is concrete, tangible opportunities to get experiences as a student into this world.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for English majors because I think a lot of us, our parents, even now, are like, what are you going to do with that? And it's so I do think getting internships and kind of helping yourself specialize helps figure that out with your English degree.
I think, I always say that now that it is more firm. When I used to joke with people, I'm like, when I worked, because I used to work with students and employers. Now I'm just working with employers. But when I worked with students, I'm like, you don't need a publishing company to publish, right? You don't need a studio to make a movie. I got YouTube, right?
Right.
And I always try to get And I would say to students, like, use your agency. I'm not saying like, oh, you got
Yes.
access to everything, but if you can't get a fancy camera, go to a Star Lab
Yes.
with it or use your cell phone. But I
Right.
think that this is also just another iteration of that in the writing world, is that like,
Yeah.
why are you waiting to get things out? You know,
Right.
start putting stuff in a paper. Yeah, I love it.
Sorry.
Start writing.
Slam
you
the
know,
microphone
Yeah,
here.
that's because I'm
Yeah, I
dropping
love
heat.
it. I know. I was gonna clap for you.
Yeah, but like, you know, start like, you know, just write a bunch of stuff and then submit it to a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And get yourself out there. Or the business part, like your parents saying what you're gonna do with a
Yeah.
job. Say, Mom and Dad, I'm creative, but I know
Right.
about the business.
Right.
You know, money talks. Like I
Right,
know how
it
to like
does.
do business and books. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like that kind of thing.
I do, and I love your focus on agency because I do think as a writer, you kind of have to be intrinsically motivated to
Yeah.
keep going with it because you know
Yeah.
publishing is hard. It doesn't pay well. If you're doing it for the accolades, like it's not going to be
You're not
very
gonna get
satisfying.
clicks.
You're
Like
not, yeah, exactly.
you know?
So I think you're right that undergrads like that agency is so important. Like start creating now. Like I created In Short myself because I was like, well, I don't see this thing out here that I want, so I
Yeah.
created it because
Your own journal.
yeah,
Right.
So yeah, I agree.
I love that. And so just going back, you know, like I definitely want to draw in because it is the third most attended homecoming event, and it's what brought us together. What what was the impetus for that? What started that?
Yeah, you know, I got a very kind email from Heather Moss in chess, and she invited. Or you know, I think it started out as like nonfiction on the fly, and so I have to give all credit to my co-host Professor Art Taylor.
Yep.
And the head of our MFA program, Professor Greg Wilhelm. They had started a thing where there was like an alumni and a student who would like free write. It started out like that, and then the last couple times it's just been Art and I. But I think that came down from chess and Heather, who is brilliant and kind and wonderful.
What was the first year, and like what was like?
I don't
So an
even
alum was like, I want to write, and I don't know how to do it.
No,
We gotta get Heather.
I gotta be honest.
We gotta
I
get
don't know.
Heather on
They
here.
just we gotta get Heather on here. I think it came down from them. I think it came down from chess. And you know, the other thing we do, and I don't know if you know about this, but no, you were there this summer. They also this summer for the first time we did like an auditing event because we have like senior citizens at Mason who can take like classes for free.
That was about to be my funny story. Okay.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to
yeah.
hear that one. So I think there is like a demand, you know, especially, you know, as you get through life, like you want to write about your lived experiences and you want to share them with people. And so I gotta be honest, I don't know how it started, but somehow I got invited.
So
and
when
was
when was the first year you got invited then? During the COVID?
Gosh, dude, I don't even know. I
Was it
think
during
it was
COVID?
COVID. Maybe. Were you there in COVID?
My
and you said I was there?
My first
Yes,
year
sounds
was
right.
my first year was either homecoming 20, like when no, it was 21. I think it was 21.
I think it was. I was like, I don't think I was doing much
haven't-
during COVID. I had
yeah,
a 1-year-old. I had
it was
online
February.
learning.
It was that fall, February 21. I gotta go back in
Yes.
it. Gotta look at my thing. I remember my friend Suhaila was in there.
Oh,
another
I love
alum.
Suhaila. Yeah, she
And I
reads
remember-
for my magazine.
I just remembered. Oh, she did. Okay.
Yeah, she did.
Shout out to
She's the
Suhaila.
best.
She's
Yeah.
doing a lot. All right.
Uh-huh.
So then I remember like, you know, they're trying to get virtual engagements. And I
Yeah.
remember just like, hey, let me just sign up for this one. And I
Yeah.
shared, and it was a great one. And then I was like, I just kept on going.
Yes.
Now, the funny story was,
Uh-oh.
I don't know how I'm like, I guess I'm on Chess's like alumni thing because it
Yeah.
wasn't through my GMU email.
Yes. Yes.
It was through Mason, but I'm not a Chess alum yet, but I've still connected. Like I've done a Chess link up and all that
Okay.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I get all these emails to my normal personal email, and I got the thing
The
about
auditor
the
event.
audits.
The senior
Yeah,
auditor
but
event.
I didn't read the word senior, or maybe I thought it was
I
senior.
was a little surprised to see you there, Philip.
No,
I was like,
or
all
maybe
right,
I'll take
it.
Maybe I thought it was seniors of
Oh,
like,
right. Oh, I
of
see.
undergrad.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that's one of my favorite events,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
in person this time. That's
Let's
dope.
do it. Yeah.
So then I signed up, and then I get there, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like 30 years younger than
I was
everybody
like, you
here.
and I were the youngest people in the room.
And I was
that day.
like, wow, they got free food though.
Yeah.
And then I realized, wow, I literally just signed up for a senior thing. And it was just perfectly like who I was. And I was like, wow. And I still loved it. My table was great.
Yeah.
So shout out to that, and shout out to being random. But
Yeah, I love that.
I think they really, I don't know why, no one ever stopped me either. They were like,
Please come.
no,
like,
they,
if
when
there's
they,
free, yeah.
they're like,
You were invited?
I think Shannon was there, Shannon Donahue. Like, one
Yes,
of
yes.
the advanced people like, welcome, Philip. I was like, I
yeah.
don't know. Happy to be here, but I
Yeah.
didn't think I was supposed to be there. That
Did
happens
you
to me a lot.
Did you think about running out? Were you like,
No.
I'm like, okay, I love
No,
that about
no,
you, Philip. You're like,
no.
I'm in. I'm rolling with it.
It's too
and-
late. I've been the only in Kinsey eras. I've done all kinds of stuff where I'm just
Okay.
like
There you go.
I'm gonna stay for a little bit, and then
Yeah.
I'll be like, wow, I need to leave. But I don't leave immediately.
You feel it out first.
I fill it out and
Yeah.
I enjoyed the table and
Yeah.
it's free, like I said, free food. That can't really hurt.
That's awesome.
And we did the exercise. I wanted to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So.
That was the first time we'd ever done it in person too. I
It's-
think
it's
we'll
just-
do it again.
Well,
I don't really know.
do the homecoming one, the way that you like.
Oh, we
'cause
are. That's happening again.
Because
Online.
I like it virtually. That
Yeah,
one.
we are
But
doing that one
I think,
virtual.
but I will concur that I think more in person, and particularly for that group, because I think it gets them plugged in, and they have some great stories that they use
did.
from their own life experiences.
Yeah, it was cool.
And it's almost like, it reminded me, tying that in about the nonfiction part,
Mm-hmm.
is my father-in-law. He passed away,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
but before he passed away, we gave him the story worth.
Oh, yes.
Where they did their stories.
Oh,
And so
that's amazing.
I did my mom. My mom got it too, right? My mom's
Okay.
alive.
Okay, yeah.
My mom don't even do it consistently.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law's like, what is your favorite food? Cheese,
Yeah,
pizza.
yeah.
Like then he was an English major in undergrad at UVA.
Oh, wow.
So he went in and actually like every response,
He really did it.
and we have a book, and it's a legit book.
That's awesome.
It's a legit book. So he took it. So I'm saying that's a great exercise to really incorporate people with real life experiences. And his did have a creative nonfiction because he put his jokes in there.
Yes,
It wasn't like just like, oh, I went here, I went here, I went here.
Yeah.
He shared stories like about, like, and my motorcycle, and he give you descriptions
Yeah,
of his motorcycle.
sounds like he wrote scenes, like kind of dropped you in the moment.
then
Instead of telling you, he showed you.
And then he
which
had the
is
pictures in the middle that they
Oh,
can,
I love that.
they can actually put your life pictures in it or pictures during it. Yeah, so he shout out to him.
That's awesome. And like you're so glad later, when that person passes that you have that.
I
It's
read it
such
all.
a gift.
I
Yeah,
just
it's such a
open. We
gift.
just open random parts and read. It's almost like
Yeah.
each chapter or each thing was like a little like short story. So
yeah,
I just randomly open it and read something and laugh and then close it.
I love that.
I should probably tell my mom to finish it or
You
do some
probably
more.
should. We should put the
know.
pressure on her.
No,
Yeah.
she's her
Hi,
answers.
Mom.
Her answers will be all over the place.
That's okay. We know what that's like.
Yeah,
That's all right. That's all
yes.
right.
So we know that we got the in short is your own creative thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love to lean in on what is that like everyday way someone can implement creative writing or creative nonfiction in their day.
Oh, that's such a good question, Philip. I think okay.
And let me pause too.
Yeah.
For the everyday person that like the Suhelas that are
Yeah.
not going into writing,
Right.
it's just good for them. Like
Yeah.
talk about that person
Okay.
and what they can do.
Okay, there's a couple things I would say, but I'll share one exercise that I do most days, not every day, that I wouldn't necessarily consider creative nonfiction, but sets me up for it. And I do something called morning pages every morning. Anyone who has read Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, have you ever heard of this book, Phil? I feel like you
No,
would dig
I
it.
need to read
It's
more
very-
books. I don't
It's
read.
very
That sounds bad. I say I don't read.
no. You
I read listen to a lot of podcasts and I do audiobooks, but I need
Love
to,
those.
I love
those.
audiobooks too.
Oh, me
Which
too.
I'm assuming before you go back, I'm
Yeah.
assuming audiobooks for these creative writing books
Yeah.
listen really well like stories.
Oh, 100%.
So I'm gonna get that.
I
Yeah.
love listening to a memoir as an audiobook.
Yeah, I think those would be a good one.
So Julia Cameron has this, and the first iteration came out in the 70s, and it's very like a little religious / spiritually,
Okay.
but it's about writing practice. The newer revised versions are maybe a little less, but she talks about these practices for sort of like reviving your inner artist, right? And we all have one. We all have inner creative energy, right? And so one of the practices she talks about is something called morning pages, where you literally, it's very important. This part is very important. You do it by hand.
That
So
part.
it's not on a computer. And I actually I have it upstairs in my office. I didn't bring it. And I keep hitting this microphone.
Yeah.
And you handwrite, and literally it's a brain dump, which for me with my ADHD, I was love to say, it's super helpful. And you just don't stop moving, and you kind of write what comes for 3
Okay.
pages, 1 backside and 1.
Okay.
And what I find is that, and it's not, that's not writing, it's not creative writing, it's just a brain dump. Because if you think about what you're writing, it kind of stops you, it defeats the
you're
purpose.
just
You
like,
just
oh,
wanna
flowery and all. Like,
Exactly.
no, you're not
you
doing
don't
all
want
that.
flowery morning pages.
No, you
This
just
is
want-
just like you move your hand for 3
Stoicism,
pages.
very stoic.
Yes, you're just doing it. And to me, that's sort of like one. Sometimes will give me material, like I'll be writing about something that happened, and I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, that's something I should think about writing an essay about.
And then you can expand.
And you can expand. But really what it does for me is it like takes all the monkeys in my brain and like just gets them out on the page. So it helps clear my mind so that I have that creative space that I can then be creative. I don't know if that's really what you're asking for, but
No, that's awesome. No, that's a great
like,
thing.
that's a great thing. Or like prompts, like,
Yeah.
you know, I think a lot of people don't write because they get stuck on what to
Yeah.
write. So just get yourself a book of prompts. And my whole thing is like, set a 10-minute timer, write to the prompt, and don't stop. I'm big on like, don't stop, don't read as you go, because that is the number one thing that stops people. Just keep writing for 10 minutes.
That's basically what Storyworth is.
Yes.
Because the prompt would be like, what is your favorite food? Assuming that someone's not going to just say pizza. They're going to say like, the pizza that my nana made with this tomato sauce from Italy, yada, yada. They would expand upon it if they did the prompt for you.
Yeah. So I highly recommend morning pages. Really for anybody. They're just amazing.
Maybe I would call them, you know, like I said, maybe you think it would lose its impact if you did morning recordings?
No,
like,
not at all.
No, like, cause me, like, I do a lot of talk to text in my notes, in my phone, and then I clean it up. So I might try that as an exercise, like just morning dumps, or you know, sounds bad, morning dumps.
I mean, those are important too. But
but that way to get it out, and
I
then
like that.
Because I agree with you. I think creativity needs to be honed, and some people don't know how to be honed, organized. I don't know how to work it. I don't know how to work out. Give me the weights, or give me the sets. I need to do 5 sets of 10. But if you gave someone structure, like write 1 prompt a day, that's a structure. They can, you know, get. And then what they did is like basically the 1 set a day or whatever. You get stronger.
You
so
do
I'm assuming.
get stronger.
So tell me a little bit about, like, if you did that morning pages, where did you feel like, wow, I'm getting better at my writing?
I feel like, you know, I've been. I am a person who is always like so positive, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this thing, and then I peter out. You know, it's hard to keep consistency. So I wouldn't say I've done them every day for many years, but the last couple years I've really, really tried. And I think what they've done is they've kind of taken some of the weight off and let me be a little more free in my writing, because I do think that like one of the reasons that a lot of us get blocked is we put so much pressure on what we write. And because I'm used to just like just going and not thinking, like honestly, thinking is the enemy of writing a lot of time, at least in the first couple drafts.
First drafts.
And I feel like I've learned to, they've helped me learn to trust myself. Like, listen, I didn't want to sit down today. I have no idea what I'm going to write about, but I'm just going to set a 5-minute timer and write till it goes off. Or I'm going to set a 10-minute timer. And so I think that, and I talk about this in my writing class too, that like we're building writing muscles, just like practicing that writing fluid, right? Like that fluidity. Then I can know, like, okay, I've been here before, many times before. I just got to get stuff on the page, and then I'll get it. I'll make it better.
So this is the only thing I think about art that's subjective and or hard, because like I said, you know, when your creativity, you're kind of saying things like, I'm doing this because I need to get this out. But then you're doing it with assumption of like, you want people to consume it or enjoy it.
Yeah.
So then like, it's a mixture, right? Like, I'm going to make music for me, but then you don't want that music to suck.
Right.
And it's a balance, because like, you know, like there's people that are great artists and they don't put out projects very often because, you know, they're trying to be perfect. And then there's times where I'm like, I've seen a guy on YouTube, he just makes terrible videos. He don't care. And he's out there, and it's just bad. It's like really bad. So how do we like,
but he's no, I think that's
is it bad to him? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I think that's the whole question, is like, I think there, you know, a lot of people who write because they need to, and they write for them. And I think that's one thing. Like, if you're writing for yourself and you don't ever share it with intend to share with an audience, that's not creative writing. That's like journaling or personal writing. What makes something creative nonfiction is that it is written like for consumption, for an outside audience. And so I think my brain is like, make 8 million points right now. The one thing that's coming to mind is that I think you can't think about that outside audience in the beginning, because it will paralyze you. So I think you have to not worry about who it's for or what it is. You just have to get it out, and then you can figure that out.
So, maybe, or just get it out, and then, like I said, the draft iterations, and then maybe you have, quote unquote, consumers or people that you can say, read over this and give me your feedback and tighten it up.
Oh, absolutely. Like, if you want to publish work or share it, you kind of have to have readers. You need people to be like, yeah, this, I see what you're doing here, or this works, or this doesn't. I think also that, like, good creative nonfiction, since this is what we're talking about, usually for it to be good and to be creative nonfiction, it has to balance the personal with the universal. So
Yeah.
like, and I find, and this sounds so like counterintuitive, but the
Yeah.
more specific you can be to your own experience, the
Yeah.
more universal it becomes. So you might
Yeah.
think that thing you're doing is like so weird or like nobody, but like so other
Somewhere
people,
out there in the world,
someone
there's
out
a billion
there,
people in the world. There's one
yes,
person that does that. I get that.
exactly. And so I think that's what makes something creative nonfiction, as opposed to just like journaling or, you know, diary entries or things like that. It's like
Right.
written for an audience. But I
For
think
an audience.
if
So
you,
it's a balance.
it's a balance, yeah.
And I think you also talked about it too, which I think I've always told students in the creative space is in right, like you're not doing it in a silo. Build a community. Like if you, like I
Yeah.
said, if you're doing that YouTube, find
Right.
other YouTubers,
Yes.
collaborate, find
Yes.
other writers, because I think then you can, you know, process by osmosis. You know, a rising
Yes.
tide raises all boats,
100.
because you learn
Yeah.
from each other. Like, damn,
Yeah.
I really like that person, what they doing, or
Yes.
and we do that. So can you talk a little about you finding creative writing communities?
Yeah, I love your focus on that, Philip. I really admire that about you, because I do think community is so important in all aspects of life, and I love how you build it here at Mason. I think as creative writers, that's also very important, because writing is one of the most lonely,
Yeah.
solitary
Yeah.
things.
See? Yeah.
And I think, you know, we need community for a couple of reasons. One, like just to be able to have someone to commiserate with about how hard it is, about
Yep.
the process. And two, to find people who get you and can read and give you good feedback. So
Yep.
you asked about writing community. I've built it a couple of ways. You know, before I was at Mason, so that span of like 5 years when I was out of undergrad, but I was working and trying to write. I took classes at the Writers Center. Do you know the Writers Center in Bethesda, Maryland?
I've heard of
They
it now.
used to have locations in Virginia. They
I've heard
don't
about-
anymore, but they have great. They
Yeah,
have
I've heard
tons
about
of
it.
online classes too.
I've heard about it.
And I needed, like most writers, I needed accountability to my work. So
Yep.
I signed up for a class.
It's like a
And
workout class.
It's like, exactly. And I met people there that we then formed a writing group after the class ended.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, same thing with my MFA program. I have my two best friends from
You
my
go-
MFA.
Yeah,
like-
classmates help too.
Yeah, we still meet. We've been out of the MFA since 2014, and we still meet one Friday every month and exchange work and like commiserate. And that, I think, is actually the best thing I got out of grad school.
Are they also in that professors, or they
Yeah.
did different things to show you
They are
to show
both-
you different things, like you could do different things with this MFA because they're doing different things.
So one of them is a professor like me at Elizabethtown College, Erica Dolson. Hi, Erica.
Yeah.
And Danielle Harms, my other friend, she was working in higher ed administration
Yeah.
at a small liberal arts college. She eventually went back to get her PhD in creative writing, and she just finished.
So you could do
And now is teaching. But yeah, so
see different worlds.
yeah.
And then I think about, you know, I don't know if this is a big thing. You know, shout out to my man once again, Michael Dunn. I'm gonna send this to him because I talk about
I
him a lot.
love it. Yes.
He did the Fox Lit thing where people read.
Yes.
Have you ever done that before this?
Yes, I've read. Yes.
How you find those
How-
in the world?
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
know-
a great question.
I only found this because I know
Yeah.
Michael. I didn't even know what you
I
do.
love it. So yeah, Philip and I are reading together at the
Yeah.
end of this month. I cannot wait. You know, there's a couple of organizations in DC. The Inner Loop is one that I would recommend that you and all your listeners know about. They host monthly readings in DC, and anybody can. You have to submit, and I think they have to you
Yeah.
submit work, and that's a monthly reading series in DC.
Yeah.
There's another local writer and his wife, Andrew Bertrana and Lauren Woods, who run something called 804 Lit Salon in DC, where they invite people to read. And they do it out of their living room in DC, which is kind of cool. You got to come to that. Mike, I see Michael there a lot. You got to come.
Well, I'm going to do also, I mean, I don't know if it's written, but I'm going to one day do the moth. You heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
But
you
you don't
totally
read,
do
you
the
just
mock.
talk. You
Yeah,
just tell a
you
story.
would be so good at that, Philip.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch. Like I said, I got notes of stories that I read.
love it.
Like random stuff that happened to me. Like I think I
Yeah.
might write now about that senior day.
Okay.
I'm gonna
You
call
should do it.
I'm gonna call it.
You should do it. That was
The
hilarious.
youngest man in the room.
It was,
That was
by far. That was, I like that title too.
talking about-
That's a
they're talking
good
about-
title. I'm so bad at titles.
They
You're
talking
so
about
good at
ARP.
these.
The kids. They're talking about their
It
kids,
was,
and I was like,
yeah.
that's your grandson is my age.
I
It was
know,
all-
I know.
youngest in the room.
It's so funny. And there's other like national writing organizations
Yes.
like the Association of Writers and Writing Programs and the magazine Poets and Writers. They have a lot of online resources too, and they can connect you with writing groups. Like they have writing group matching services. They publicize readings. And you know, universities are usually really big hubs of this kind of stuff.
We talking about we got this. I didn't even know we had a still house. So I learned
Yeah.
something new.
Yeah.
That's why this podcast for me has been what I call archive of like people are my guests.
Yes.
This is my hidden. You see all my notes.
I love your notes.
It's like a
Philip
hidden
is
curriculum.
scribbling over here. I
Yeah,
love it.
you know,
I'm hitting the microphone, trying not to kick the table.
But it helps me learn about different things that
Yeah.
there's a hidden curriculum. But a lot, like, as I say, I pass down and give to students, like, you know, don't wait to create. You can get involved in all these ways because, like,
absolutely.
you know, just show up. That's it. Like, just go to that thing and talk to people at the loop. You know?
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure I get back on time for work. There's a part of the show called Shot for Shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first or I'll go first?
I think I need you to go first so I get a sense
of
questions.
Nonfiction, though. Like I say, if it was creative fiction and you had to write a book, what would it be what would the book be about if it was a fiction book?
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Okay.
And, like, you know, like, you could talk about anything, like dystopian future, aliens. Like, what you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would be one of those fiction writers who kind of draws from my own life and calls it fiction. So I would probably write, oh, God, what would I write? This is why I'm not a fiction writer.
Maybe it could be about your life, and then naturally the dystopian future happens while you're living normal life.
I think it would take place in college, and it would be a college woman protagonist, and she would be dealing with the, you know, death of somebody and trying to figure out who she was, and this is why I don't write.
Then where's the fiction part? Then the aliens come over? Like,
well, it wouldn't be me. It would be like well, but fiction, there's also realistic fiction, and it's not all fantasy.
See, okay, that's the loophole. That's the loophole.
There's totally realistic fiction.
Realistic fiction. That was her loophole.
Yeah, that's my loophole.
Sorry,
I cheated.
I have a lot of realistic fiction in my, where, like I said, one of my favorite, one of my very specific dreams that I have is there's an arc, right? The arc, but it's like to go into space, and you know, only the brightest, smartest, creative people get on the arc.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna get on it. So I've lived my whole life to train my kids to get on it.
Yeah.
And so my boys, you know, my son is really strong. You know, he's really, and my other son, you know, they're both a scientist. You know, they're just. And they get on the ark and they leave, and I stay on Earth and I wave. Oh, wow. It's a very vivid thing. Yeah. But it'd be like that'd be called, you called the ark.
I like it.
And then everyone leaves because I'm not going anywhere. I'm too old to go to space. No, also space scares me.
I mean, I hear you on
that. I did another
Send
joke.
Our children
I can share my second question, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I usually ask people, would they rather be lost in space or lost in sea?
Oh, definitely lost at sea.
Yeah, because you can see the water.
Yeah.
Space. So that's my dream. Okay, what's your question for me?
All right, so Philip, if you wrote a memoir of your life, what would it be called?
My life? Okay, I already did this before. I used to ask people, I'll send it to you, my new friend survey.
Yeah,
and I would call,
no way.
Yeah, and my title of my book would be called The Life of Philip Wilkerson, the Most Random Man in the World. And it would just be like just a kind of homage to Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
But it'd be like me.
I would read that book.
Because
write that book.
I'm randomly in random spaces. Like, how do I get here?
Yeah, I love that.
Meeting presidents and stuff. And so it would be that. It'd just be like, you know, I randomly wrote a book, and then I'm like renowned at poetry reading with senior citizens. You know, like, that's just like, how does this happen?
How do these things happen?
Or like,
I love that. That's a great, and also you're demonstrating like a very important thing in memoir, or like with books anyway. You have that like the main title, but then you have the subtitle that explains what it's about.
I have to.
So like, nice work on that.
It's funny, the other part that this is a dream of mine, and it's going to happen, is that I'm going to write a book called The Tale of Two Virginias.
Oh.
And so I put this out there. I put it out there. People going maybe 10 years down the line. So I have forced myself to do it. But my father-in-law, who passed away, was a white man from Jersey, came down to UVA, and was it 1967 to 71?
Okay, yeah.
My father, black, surprise, he was one of the first black students at VMI, Virginia Military Institute, from class from 68 to 72. So they kind of overlapped. So the book would be about their two experiences at a Virginia school, one as a Jewish man, one as a black man. And I would talk about year by year what was going on like in the world with civil rights, but then what was going on in their campuses.
Yeah.
And it was called The Tale of Two Virginias. And I already started a draft where I'm trying to like think about like what's going on, like interviewing my dad while he's still alive, like what was going on in 68 and all that. But then I try to get the macro, like, the Civil Rights Act and
Right.
integrating schools. VMI was the last school to integrate
Damn.
college in
Shoot.
'68, right?
Yeah.
So-
I didn't know that.
And then my dad, I was like, dang, he did double time. My dad was also
Yeah.
like the Remember the Titans. He was the
Yes.
Remember the Titans of Hampton area, where
Oh my gosh.
Hampton High
really?
School was the first year. So he was the first black students at high school and in college.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then
You could sell that book on proposal. Somebody.
I think
that's a great book
I
idea.
think so. Like the Tale of Two Virginias, and it's gonna be real,
Yeah.
real what really happened to him. But then I think I had to I don't want it to be boring, so flower it up. Like imagine
Yeah, no,
first day
right.
of campus, and like one funny story that my dad shares is that my grandfather passed away when my dad was very young, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it was him and his mom, and my mom, my grandma had a bunch of uncles.
Yeah.
So his first day of dropped off at college was one of his uncles, right?
Okay.
And so while they're driving in to VMI, they see a big billboard that says, "Welcome to Rockingham County, home of the Virginia chapter of the KKK." Yeah,
No.
yeah. You know what
Oh my
my uncle
God.
does? My uncle's good luck and drops him off and then bounces.
I'm out of here.
He said, "See you later."
Oh my
I was like,
God.
"Dang, Dad." He's like, "Oh, well."
Dude.
My dad minimizes it. He's like, "Well, I was at the school. I'll be all right."
Oh
I was
my
like, "Wait,
God.
what?" Or like things like that. Or
Yeah.
here's another funny story I always share is that my dad, by height, my dad was 6 foot,
Okay.
but when he went to VMI, he was the first class of black students. There were 5 of them,
Oh my gosh.
and they had companies like A company,
Oh,
B
yeah,
company,
yeah,
C
yeah.
company,
Yeah.
but they were based off height.
Oh.
So they were like,
Interesting.
"We can't have all you black guys in the same company.
Oh.
We're gonna put
okay.
you in A company," which was the tallest guys. So my dad was like, "If I'm in this company, I won't be seen." So my dad, busted his tail, and
Yeah.
he was the first black leader of A company, right?
Wow.
He's in the front doing this thing, parade ground when he's graduating, parade ground, doing it. Dun, 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 dun. My grandma's there. He goes, he said, "Mom, did you see me? I was in the front of A company parading." She said, "No, y'all all look alike."
Oh.
So he busted. He did all that for 4 years. My grandma was like, "I don't know who you were. You all look
Oh
alike."
my
But
God.
so that was funny. Like
Philip, that's what.
I use that story to tell me, like, you got to do things for yourself, because he literally
Yeah.
tried hard. He said, "Mom,"
Yeah, right.
he said, "Mom, you see me? I was in the front of A company." She's like, "Nah, y'all look alike with your uniform."
Oh my God.
So
Philip,
those are 2 stories that definitely go in the book.
you should. And I know I'm not supposed to curse, but man, your dad sounds like a bad A.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
a cool
yeah.
guy. You
Yeah,
gotta
he's
tell his
still around.
story. You gotta tell his story.
He's
Or
cool.
he's gotta tell his
Oh,
story.
he's not really
Somebody's
now.
got to.
He wears Hawaiian
He's-
shirts. Like he's 30 years,
funny
30 years
how-
more Army Colonel. He wears Crocs and Army shirts and
Well,
lives his best
he
life.
earned it, man.
No, he's
He
chilling.
earned it, yeah.
he's such a goofball. But so
love it.
those are stories, and I have so many stories from Jeff
And
as
those
well.
are such great stories. And that's why I love creative nonfiction too, because like the world needs that story. That's a story I want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's what creative nonfiction is. And also I think people feel like it's limiting, but I'm like, I think it's so cool to meet and hear about lives that you wouldn't know about otherwise, right? I
Yeah.
think creative nonfiction also is like the key to empathy, because you're
100%.
reading about people that are not you, that maybe don't have your same experience. And man, yeah, I love it.
I read a memoir really tangent that was about a Vietnamese gentleman. He was half white, half Vietnamese, and his mom got with a GI right before the fall of Saigon. I can't remember now. I gotta read
I
it.
was gonna say, what's the title?
I can't. I'll find out.
Okay, yeah.
But the
text me
sad
later.
part is he once they bounced, see you later, American soldiers.
Yeah.
He was stuck in Vietnam, and he was kind of like
Oh
a
my
cursed
God.
person, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I learned that. So that built empathy. Like, dang, I didn't realize how hard it was to
Right.
live in Vietnam after
Right.
everyone left. So
Right.
I agree with you. That's why
Yeah.
that came to mind.
I love that.
So this is the part of the show called shout outs and plugs. So you get to shout out, show love to anyone you want to show love, and then plugs. These are things, I got some of the resources, but other resources that you want me to make sure I put in the show notes. So shout outs and plugs.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, I think because Memoirs in a Flash brought us together, I want to shout out Heather Moss in chess. I want to shout out my co-host, Art Taylor, who is amazing. I want to shout out Greg Wilhelm for supporting it. God, I could shout people out. I want to thank also Bill Miller, who was there too and invited me on his podcast, and we had a great conversation.
What's the name of that?
It's called Upstart Crow.
Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah, he would be cool to interview too, like 2 podcast hosts.
I'll put that on there. Okay.
Yeah, I want to shout out childcare for helping me have a career and balance all the many things. And I want to shout out you, Philip. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for like this kindness ambassadorship that you do, I think is so cool and so important. So thank you for having me. You are the ultimate shout out. Thank you so much for having me here today.
I appreciate it. Well, Positive Filter listeners, this has been another great episode. Please like, subscribe, share it with one of your friends and family members. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch, for all the work he did fighting food insecurity. So consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund. And if you're a member of the Mason Nation, please consider submitting a Pats for Patriots to send love to someone in the Mason Nation. Thank you so much, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.